I'm Mel.
And I'm Mark.
And this is the Cerebral Sports Podcast. On the Cerebral Sports Podcast, we champion the mental development, wellness, and health of athletes, big, small, professional, and amateur.
Week to week, we'll have compelling conversations with athletes, coaches, parents, and mental health professionals to discuss their experiences and point of views as we work to bring awareness to the most vital muscle in an athlete's body, the mind.
All right, we're back with another great episode here at the Cerebral Sport Podcast. Today we have a very special guest joining us, Dr. Tanya White. She is an absolute awesome person. She/her, right? That's where we go. We go with that way. Is an awesome person. I had the fortunate pleasure of being taught by her over the summer with the DEI class that I took up to try to gain my my cert really within the sports psychology. And when I started to take the class, there was so many things that were brought up that really made me focus and think about just life in a whole different fashion. Dr. White is a survivor advocate, owns own corporation, works with all types of social justice research and body and advocacy work with both with the sports of psychology and also within society. Received all kinds of awards. In 2020, the American Psychological Association awarded her. Also a keynote speaker at the National Women's Girl Scout Convention, 2007 U.S. Tumbling. I mean, the list goes on. There is not much more I can really speak about from the award standpoint. Also has been published in all types of clinical journals within the sports and exercise. Just a breath of fresh air, a bright light. Someone that every class that I would go in, I would really just walk away just that much more at peace and that much more happy to know that there are people in the world that really see it in the right light. Without further ado, for everyone that is listening, Dr. Tanya White is joining us. Thank you for being a part.
Thank you so much, Jamel and Mar, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and to be sharing this space with you both.
Beautiful. So the first thing I really wanted to talk about for the listener is really if you can just give us a little bit of your background, right? What made you get into this line of work, and what does the work look like, right? Because I think when people hear it, they know the words, they know exactly what they think it means, but we really don't know what it entails and how it kind of can be such a positive thing to have.
Yeah. So you want me to start with the sports psych side and then intertwine DE&I, or just go with it? Okay, so
go with it.
I am 5'3", and my sport was basketball. Yeah, right. Like people see me, oh, you're a gymnast, soccer player, maybe swimmer, but not basketball. And so from a really early age, I fell in love with the game of basketball. My dad was a Hoosier, he was a coach, and I need to have a mental side of the game to be any kind of good, I guess. My team was very successful. We went to state 3 consecutive years, won a state championship, went undefeated. And unbeknownst to my conscious mind at the time, though, I was being groomed by my high school basketball coach. And, I found a lot of success in that. And we went to a camp over the summer as a team, and there was a sports psych from UW lacrosse. I still remember it. And we had to create a mantra. And for me, it was, I'm a tiger till the end. And so now I'm 40 years old. At 16, I came up with I'm a tiger till the end. I would be that person that was playing full court, woman to woman, person to person, man to man defense all the time. And I'd be like, I'm a tiger till the end. Like, that annoying little person. And so I still say it to myself today, but I thought, gosh, this would be like the most amazing career, a job. Like, how cool is this? Where other teammates were like, this is hocus pocus, like stupid, all that. And I really bought into it. Fast forward, I got a doctorate in it. And I think intertwining my commitment and responsibility to diversity, equity, inclusion, my career probably doesn't look like a lot of other people. And it's still evolving. And I think the thing is it became really clear to me when I was at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. I was in the mental training center for athletes, and I'm from a small town. I was raised Christian. I'm white, I'm cisgender, like all these things. I'm like, but I'm working with people who have such diverse experiences, who are different from me. And I got it here. I say this all the time. I got it here. Like, oh, I think I should take social justice and education. I think I should take a critical race theory course. Like, I need to understand this, because my lived experience is not other people's lived experiences. And then in truth, when I went to the City University of New York for my first position as a faculty member, I was at York College in Jamaica, Queens, and my nickname was Light Bright. I recognized that the things I learned about myself racially was because of learning about individuals living in darker skin than myself. And but I was opened up to a whole new world, and I was still in my privilege, like, the white woman walking around campus or with athletes. So I was still protected in my whiteness as a woman, but recognizing that there are two worlds happening, and starting to own that I had a responsibility to do that. And the same time, when I was living in New York City, I mean, friends who were part of the LGBTQ community, first generation immigrants, English their second language. And I really believe we begin to be in community with people who are different from us. And we, not a romantic love, but when we love people at a family, like we're sitting at Thanksgiving dinner, right? Because we can't go, and people are so different. It's like, that is what changed me. I mean, it changed my heart. Like, I sometimes I don't think twice. I feel like this is just a way of life. And I'm reminded that I'm imperfect. I still have to be reminded of my dominance, societally speaking, but I have a responsibility. And so I think in my career, that has been something that I began writing about. I began, speaking up in spaces. And so something that I just feel like I have a responsibility to continually educate myself, to heal myself, to recognize my white supremacy that's living in me, my gender normativity, all these things, so I can be a better human, because I never know, like, some identities we can see, we know, but there's so many identities that we can't see. And so I need to show up as a human that'll create a space where someone else will not just feel like they can, like they're welcome, but they actually belong. Like they really belong in this space. And I can't do that. I can't give what I don't have, but I can't do that if I'm not working on myself and speaking up, and working alongside communities who are intentionally ignored.
Good. I mean, that's, I didn't know you were in Queens for a little bit. I mean,
Literally next door, like a hop, skip, and a jump from where I'm at right now. Like, that is absolutely amazing. Allyship is so important. And it's a difficult thing to do. And I think a lot of times we look at allyship, this has been, normalized or more popularized from like a racial perspective, but you're doing it on all avenues. So that's extremely commendable and selfless. It takes a lot to give of yourself to another group of people who aren't necessarily, in your immediate group, not in the group that you were kind of born into or, grew up around and or with. And it takes a lot of going out of your way. So it says a lot about you as a person. I could feel the passion, like literally emanating from you through the screen. And, Jamel was raving about you all week. And, I was busy with work. I was so busy this week. And I was like, and I'm like, Jamel, shut up. But now I feel like Jamel. But now I feel just like Jamel. So I just wanted to call that out really quickly. And I'm sure when people see this and hear this, they'll feel the same.
Yeah.
One of the things that definitely, I know you have a sports psych side to your business that you do. And one of the things I wanted to really talk to you about is, like, based off your line of work, what would you say is like one of the biggest challenges that you see young athletes face within the scope of being, maybe underprivileged, maybe being in that level of oppression, not being able to speak up for themselves? Like, what are some of the things that you see? And then just to piggyback and have like a two-part question, what are some of the things that you do or you would suggest someone would do for those things that you see to be a big problem?
So many things, but I'm going to start with this. I think about when I'm working, also I do work in sexual misconduct prevention and like survivorship. So I have mostly collegiate athletes mostly female, who are survivors within sport. And so it applies there, but it applies with athletes living in marginalized or intentional ignored identities. Is when we think about sport, right? Sport is oppressive. And we think about, right, who leads in sport, who makes money off of sport. Let's right. And so we have to start there. And we're going to say white, cisgender, wealthy, generally Christian, right? So much power, create the rules. They create the rules. So it's, play through pain. It's listen to your coach. They're what they say is gospel. Don't show weakness. Right. Look for distinction, all of these types of things. And sociology, Coakley talks about this. And so as an athlete, any athlete, then you add an intentionally ignored identity, LGBTQ, right? A survivor. It's like, I can't speak up because I'm living within this socialized construct where I don't have a voice, that I'm just supposed to produce. I'm just supposed to perform. And, there are coaches, I want to say, in programs that don't operate this way, but I even find it in my work, a lot of work with collegiate athletes. It's like, it's having clients, humans, athletes recognize, no, like, this doesn't work without you, right? Like, your coach gets paid because you show up every morning at 5.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And because you make a basket, you score a goal, you throw a touchdown. That's also why a president of a university has a job, right? That's like all these things. And then who are the people in these jobs? So for me, it looks like reminding athletes, helping athletes find their power, find their voice. And a lot of times that means just exploring of like, how are you perceiving this? Like, how is this working for you? And recognizing, this is what's radical about me. It's like, you don't have to do this for the benefit of everybody around you. And that could include parents, right? And so it's really transformative too, once athletes start recognizing, okay, I have power in this situation. I have a voice. And I guess I'm starting to own, people say like these ideas are radical, I'm renegade, but no, it's like, this works for some people. It's not working for all, and it's not working for student athletes. And then I'm also want to add on, and the mental health of our world, our nation, and then, and athletes and youth athletes everywhere, it's fragile. And so, but the structure and the system hasn't changed. The pressure hasn't changed. And so I just try to create a space where someone can feel unjudged, fully themselves, authentic, and just explore what it is they need in this moment as a human first, and then an athlete. I do executive coaching, or, then an executive, then a surgeon, because we don't have enough spaces in this world where we can just like put it all down and be like, you know what, my life is whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm confused. I'm sad.
It's really good to hear you speak about it this way, because where I'm at, the program that I coach for, we're a non-scholarship program. So none of my guys are here under scholarship. And one of the things that I always tell them is that know your worth, right? You guys, without you, there's no me. Without you, there's no athletics, there's no athletic director. Like, you guys are creating jobs. So if you're unhappy, or if you feel like, you guys deserve something, speak about it, have a conversation. Let's see if we can kind of fix that problem that you may be having. And then the same thing when it comes to like the athletes themselves, finding that space to where they do need a mental break, allowing them to have it. Not to talk about my team per se, but I've actually, I wouldn't say suspended. I'm forcing a kid to sit out this week because he's not okay. And he's telling himself he's okay. He's telling himself he can go. But everything outside of him actually being on the field running around is telling me he can't. So you're not playing tomorrow, not as a punishment. It's not punitive. I want you to find someone that you can talk to, someone that can give you that help, someone that can create that space for you to kind of talk to you about what it is that you're going through. So that way, when you do get back on the field, you are your true self. So I picked that up from the class that I did in the summer. I picked that up along the way of learning and reading more about the sports psychology, because I don't want to be that coach, that oppressive coach where you got to play through pain. You got to, go when you can't go. You got to push through things that you shouldn't be pushing through. But I also want to make sure that they have avenues that they can go down to communicate when they're feeling that way. So that way they can get back on track and continue to be their best person. So it's really comforting to hear you speak about it, in the way that you're talking through your line of work. It just gives me extra reassurance to say that I actually am kind of seeing it in the same light, so that's awesome.
Yeah. And I would say, too, I think about, it's not weakness. It's not weakness to say, hey, like I needed to take a pause. I need to regather myself. And in sport, it's like, if you're not going above and beyond, you're not strong enough, you're not committed, you're not resilient. And it's like, no, getting up in the morning for so many humans, that's grit right there. Like, we don't need sport to prove that we're resilient.
Yeah. You just keep pushing through. And then eventually what happens, that's when you get the kids that have those breakdowns and they can't fully function. But if they take their break, take their step back, I just think it's just a better overall environment that you create for the athlete.
Absolutely.
Marlon, you got anything for us?
Yeah, I definitely do. Listening to your opening about being 5'3" and playing basketball and being a Tiger, was there ever a time during, your high school career playing basketball that you felt the feelings, or any of the feelings that you feel now? Was there anything that happened during that time that maybe triggered some of the, I guess, passion that you have now in your work?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was sharing how I would play full court defense. I would even do that at open gym. Okay. Like that was, I recognize now I've grown. I'm an intense human. I'm loving, I am joyful, but I'm intense. And like if I work out and I'm on a treadmill, I'm racing to the person next to me.
Oh, you're that person. Okay. You're not getting off until I get off. Okay. Got it.
Okay. So open gym, I was the only girl playing. So there's 9 guys, me playing open gym. I'm playing the point guard of the boys team going into my junior year, I can't remember, playing full court defense. And I remember him having the ball, looking me in the face and elbowing me, just annoyed, right? I was annoying. I was like, right. I think it was intentional. Was it intentional? I don't really know. I never got an apology. What I do remember, so my front tooth pierced through my lip, and blood was everywhere, dripping on the floor, and no one said a word. No, male in that space said anything. I walked by myself. I kept it all together, right? All the things, got to be strong. I walked myself to the girls' women's restroom. And that's when I cried, and I saw like everywhere. And it was a moment where I recognized I wasn't wanted in that space, right? Like I had gone too far. That I've written about this story, and I think about that, quote unquote, girls, right? We went undefeated and won a state championship, and the boys team sucked. Like, I mean, for lack of a more professional term, they were bad. And we would scrimmage against them to prepare for, going to state and sectionals and all that. That had to be, in the world we live in, like demasculating, right? And so that was a space where, that was the first time where I recognized, like, oh, this isn't a fair world. And I mean, I have a lot of privilege that I have to own, but that was a moment where I was like, this isn't right. And then also being silenced as a young girl. I was groomed from 4th grade to 12th grade by this high school basketball coach, not having the words, but knowing something didn't feel right. But, people undermining it, like, oh no, it's not really what it is. It's just, and I've learned that when someone tells me their experience, to trust that. Like, I don't get to interpret that. If someone says this is painful, that this is harm, it's harm. And I think that experience, those two experiences of really for me were the beginning of probably just having an emotional capacity for humans who are harmed, you know? Yeah. And I don't want to harm anybody. You know, I don't want anyone, I don't want to intentionally do harm. And so we all have something, right? We all have some level of most of us, I shouldn't say all, most of us have some level of quote unquote advantage or privilege in society. Maybe it's educationally, socioeconomically, maybe we are male, identify as male, cisgender, white, right? Like so it's just kind of like, oh, how is this impacting me? How does it impact how I show up? And I think those two things were like where my passion really began. And my aunt, who was like a sister to me, had Down syndrome. And so I grew up in a very monocultural space, but I knew very well what it felt like to always be stared at, to be laughed at as a family, you know, and that just, it always angered me. You know, I was like, this isn't right. Like, this is the most loving human I've ever known in my life. And so I think like all of that just gave me a capacity to be like, let's do this. Let's do this. This is important.
And how do you feel like with your work, do you feel that you're creating change, or do you feel like you're getting a big response, a positive response, or are you having some turbulence? Because you talk to some people even about DEI, they're like, the hell, what is that? Who cares? Like, or if you're talking about gender, equality, all the things that we, as I should say me, right, talk about myself, that I think it should just be normal and natural just to be a loving, caring human. Some people really have challenges because they don't want to live in that reflective light. They don't want to kind of self-reflect on some of the things that they may see. They may think they're doing it right, but it's not, right? So for you, are you experiencing great response? Or are you having some turbulence? Like, what is it that you face in your career?
I mean, I think there's resistance always, right? Like, resistance, small changes, performative changes. I'll say we, like diversity, equity, and inclusion at the heart of it is soul work, healing work. It's like, I didn't recognize my cisgender dominance. I didn't, oh man, I laughed at how someone spoke from being from another country and speaking another language. Like, right. It's like, whoa, we've all got it. Right. And I think as humans, it's so much more comfortable to be like, well, I can't change anything. I can't do anything. And so, I've met a lot of resistance. I've had clients look at my website and be like, not for me, too radical. And it's like, well, when I enter a space, I'm not going to be shoving stuff down your throat because this is about you. If it's a one-on-one like session, this is about what you need. I might challenge gently, but so I think like, and also being okay with that. Like, if that has been the move, then okay, yeah, like this is who I am, right? I want to be a co-conspirator. I want to take action. I want to use my privileged identities to make for equity. And so that means I have, like, if you don't want to work with me, that's okay. Like, this isn't going to be probably a good partnership. And I think around that, I've also learned, I used to be like, let me tell you how it is, in your face. This is what you need to know. And I'm shifting. Like, I really believe, and I've talked recently with some clients of like, if we want change, we have to speak to people's heart. This is where I'm moving, right? If I make someone defensive, feel insecure, angry, like that's not going to move to change. And so I've done a lot less calling out, and there's people who have different ideas about this. And I'm also doing this with my experience and my identities. But I've found if I call people in, like, hey, tell me, I see things differently. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Or, you made this comment about LGBTQ folks, and I just, it made me feel uncomfortable. So I would like to hear your thoughts on it. And I've recognized when I come in with a little bit or a lot of bit more grace and curiosity and well, this will, cultural humility,
Yes.
I see what I'm seeing is that, one-on-one shifts. Like this work is relational work. If I don't have a relationship with people, there's no change going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I've started recognizing, and then also recognizing where my lane is and my lane isn't.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a great point, because I was thinking as you're speaking, I'm thinking, you can't be everywhere. You can't be everywhere. Jamel has relationships. I have relationships, where we see people who don't operate in an inclusive manner at times. What is the advice that you would give, kind of like in a broad scope where I could, help this cause along, or Jamel can help this cause along, or correct others, just kind of like in live time, because everyone can't get to sit with Tanya White. You know what I mean?
Dr. Tanya.
I mean, I've moved to recognize like the work is always with ourselves.
Hmm.
And so I think to be inclusive, it's where are the areas where I need to grow. And so me recognizing an area I need to grow is like being inclusive to people either living with disabilities or disabled, however they identify, and being aware, like I didn't ask, as an example, I didn't ask right now, and this is, do I have to make sure that we have a transcript, right? These kinds of things I don't take into account because of my levels of privilege. So I think that, and then I think if we're trying to bring people in, it's it's saying the hard things. It's when we interrupt or we disrupt someone's train of thought, I've learned like we're creating, we have to be able to hold our calm while we create some discomfort, from some anxiety, some defensive, an element of it, but we can't match their energy. And that's the other thing. Like, I'm really like, I want to stay, this is what it is, cool, calm. I have a lot of passion, but also in moments like speak truth. But, I don't want to get someone to a point that they're so anxious that they can't even make the change because they're going to go right back and revert back to their comfort.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the best.
Yeah. No, no. That's it's a great answer, and it kind of leads me to, I think, and I hate to say this, and maybe maybe you'll correct me. I feel like after a certain time, or a certain age, sometimes it can be a sunk cost to try to work on certain persons to try to get them to evolve or evolve. But you do a lot of work with children. You do a lot of work with, or the younger generation and younger athletes and things like that. What is the reception to these like, ideals from young athletes and young athletes that you've experienced so far? Do you feel like there's more germination there, that they're taking to it, stronger than perhaps, people who are already kind of stuck in their ways?
Yeah, I want to answer that, and I want to back up for a second if I can. I
Okay,
want
sure.
to also acknowledge that I live in many dominant identities. And so
Mhm.
I have a responsibility. So like, let's say we're talking about race. I have a responsibility. I don't want to name, but I don't feel as like that's an emotional labor or burden that shouldn't be placed on the people with the identities. Like if you all wanted to do racial equity work, I don't want to make a, you might have to for your survival. I have a responsibility. And so I think it's also like, I don't also believe someone living, someone's LGBTQ. I don't think they have a responsibility to go in spaces and interrupt and disrupt. I think that the responsibility holds on those with dominance in societal means or norms.
Okay.
So I want to just say that because
Yeah.
I think it's really important, because those of us who live in many dominant identities in society, we sit back like, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I'm going to overthink it. Like, I don't, like this isn't my lane. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but saying nothing is doing nothing. So I wanted to say that. And then about younger generations, I would say much more open, but that is also with the humans I'm working with, because I also recognize, there is a self-selection process going. I mean, I don't think that there's certain clients that aren't going to choose me to work with, right? There's universities that are not going to bring me in to do a sexual misconduct prevention workshop. They're going to look at my website and they're going to turn the other way. Like I've had people like, how confrontational are you? Like, oh my gosh, I'm actually not a confrontational human unless I have to be. Like, so, I think I need to name that is also the reality of like who I'm working with. It's not lost on me that people that want to remain in their ways and want to continue to make the systems work for them, they're benefiting, they're not going to work with me, and that's okay.
I think you have put that in the bio, right? Disruption. You create it and you advocate for it. So, like, I'm very thankful, and I love the lane that you're in, and I'm hopeful that the younger generations, because really and truly, I know it's like cliche, everyone always says it, but that's all we have. We have the youth. The youth is what's going to help the future to continue to change in the way in which we all hope it does. So, the young ones are a little bit easier, I feel, to be able to mold. But at the same time, as the older person now that we fall into that category, Marlon, we're old.
Yeah. Right? No, speak for yourself. Don't talk for me. Speak for yourself, brother.
Young at heart.
I don't know. Subscribe to that.
I was waiting. I thought you were gonna let me go just now. You said yeah. So whoa,
no way.
Let me go on that one. I thought you were good. But I feel like it's our responsibilities to kind of, bring to light and also create the platforms to have these uncomfortable conversations. Right? And I think, like I tell my players all the time, I'm going to get you comfortable being uncomfortable. Right? We have I don't know if you heard RISE. You heard of RISE, RISE? I'm going to talk to my team tomorrow before we play. They're going to talk to us and I guess the other team that we're playing against. And, I had mentioned to them, I said, I did a lot of work with this over the summer, and I'm really excited because this is like outside of the game, right? Because the game is the fun part. This is like more like the business. These are the things that the game brings, right? This is the thing that the sport brings, talking about, just everyone in the same room, having a workshop, talking about everything, every walk of life, being challenged, being able to self-reflect and really figure out who we really are as individuals, and then who we can be as a team. So I'm really excited about that, man. But I just want to say your body of work is just tremendous. It really is, man. And is there anything that we haven't touched on that you want to just bring to light since we've started this conversation? Because I don't want to miss anything.
Cool. I think I want to piggyback off of what you've shared is that we can normalize, like as adults, leaders, we can normalize conversations that are uncomfortable, like you said, on issues of diversity, equity, inclusion, as coaches, as sport leaders, as consultants. And, you think about this, I don't know, I'm just going to generalize, maybe a football team's 100 young people, bringing a lot of times coaches will say to me, well, this isn't my lane. This isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. This is too uncomfortable for me. And a lot of times I'll try to gently nudge, like, if you don't have the conversation, like we can't keep expecting young people to have these conversations in a classroom, at their homes. And so I would say like that it can be a role of like, hey, what do you all think about, Brittany Griner, in Russia? Like we can do that. It can be small conversations, and we can do that. And then, talk about the intersection of gender and race and sexuality. Right. And there's all of these spaces where we can be doing it. We can be doing it with our kids as well. We can raise our kids. And I think that we just think, oh, well, like, there's nothing I can do. There's so much we can do. If I often say, if each of us impacted 10 people and they all impacted 10 people, right? It's just like the ripple effects, though. I think, I sit, right? People sit, humans, we sit in our comfort and like, oh, do I want to speak up at this meeting? Right. When we notice harm. And I think that the world just needs more people that are willing to get uncomfortable. And too many people who are sitting in their comfort because it works for us. It works for us.
Yeah, for sure. And, I want to take the moment to just say that, knowing that Jamel is a leader of, 100 plus, 80 to 100 plus young men every week, every year, every season, and a new crop all the time, that's a humongous help because I know the kind of person he is. I know the kind of person he is. I know the kind of messages that he's going to spread and deliver and send, opposed to someone else in the coaching space who might lean into their privilege or not be inclusive. I know that's not who Jamel is, as you can tell based on the work he's doing. And also to your point about just having these conversations just normally. I remember having a conversation about just like homosexuality and the homosexual community with just a friend, just having it because it's become a big topic when we watch TV now. I've heard people say things like there's a gay scene in so many shows now. And I heard that a few times and I didn't say anything, but it kind of started to sink in. And I was just like, I'm sure that's how white people felt when there started to be a Black person in every show. Like, why is there a Black person in every show now? Like, representation matters. You know what I mean? Like, and it just really hit me like, I never thought of this before and it's not fair. And I had that conversation with my friend and I changed one mind. And I think if more people did that, to your point, we'd have a more inclusive existence, like overall.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think sometimes we think about this work as being, and myself included, like, oh, I got to be giving this workshop and and it's actually like this work is behind the scenes work. It's
soul work, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
It's like, and especially for those living in, like, this is not Instagrammable, right? Like, oh yeah, just like interrupt racism today, like, it's just, but like that's the other thing. Or I just had a really difficult conversation about the transgender inclusion, and it's like no, and it's kind of like no, like this is not that work. This work is behind the scenes. This work is personal. And this work is also believing in the goodness of people, of humans, that, some of us are so hardened from ourselves.
Yeah, I will say, and I know, Marla, you brought up what I do and my guys that the players that I have. It is exhausting. I'm going to tell you, it's work. Like, it's not, and I'm sure, Tanya, you can talk about the layers and layers and layers and layers and layers that you have to continue to peel back to get these young people to really be able to develop and be whole, right? Outside of the DEI work and the advocacy work, a lot of these players that I have some real deep rooted things that go on, and they don't really realize it. And for me, I'm at a 2-year institution where I got a short window, and I have a turnover, and then I have another group, and I have a turnover. So I try to continuously, get my studying in the off season, take on some more courses, try to get this certification completed, because outside of the X's and O's and schematics and making sure these kids, these guys are running around and winning games, I'm really trying to develop the mental half. I'm really trying to develop them as a whole person. I told my staff this year, I don't really care about offense or defense. You guys handle that. I'm going to take on the person. So we got 4 layers now that we got to work on. We got offense, we got defense, we got special teams. I got the person. So there are things that are going to go on that you guys may not really understand outside of the game, but I'm going to hang on to that. And I think, just even this week, I was just telling you, I literally set a kid down, and the coaches, because he got into a little confrontation, but when he got into the confrontation, he had like a little bit of a break. He was, sobbing. I'm like, man, there's something wrong here. I'm good. I'm like, it's okay not being okay, man. Like, it's okay. I'm okay with you not being okay, but I'm not going to put you back out there until you are okay. It's not a punitive punishment. Most coaches would have, you're fighting on the field, get out of here, kick them off the team. That ain't it. Like, we got to continue to work with these young people and develop them as a whole, not just as
Yep.
what they can do for you. I'm not looking for a transaction, I'm looking to transform. I'm not looking to do a transaction. I want to transform these
Wow.
people. So,
Mhm.
You got to put that on something. You got to put that on
Yeah,
a
you
t-shirt.
do.
So I'm letting you know right now. You got to put that on a t-shirt because and I hate to cut you off, Melanie. I'm gonna come right back to you, but this stuff lands with me so well because Tanya, Jamel was a tremendous football player. I was not, right? And there's a difference in the way a lot of coaches treat tremendous football players. Like you would say, player number 1 or 5 on the team compared to player number 35 or 40 on the team. And that has a lasting impact. That has had a lasting impact on me and my confidence and my ability to deal with conflict or problem solving and to speak up and be out in front. Some of that being timid, it carries over. So Jamel developing the people, the person, that kid may not be a superstar for him on the team, but the development that he's doing with that child or that young man, it could be a superstar in his career later on in life. So it has so much of it. And this is why I'm passionate about this and why I'm a part of this podcast is because I remember what it was like. And that's why I had to ask you, what was the moment for you, in your athletics and your, adolescence that made you want to get into this work, So, Mel, I'm sorry to go off on a tangent, but I feel so passionate about that part because I'm still that kid inside. You know what I'm saying? I'm still him.
I think we all are. Tanya's still a tiger, man. She's still
yeah.
ripping heads off, right?
You're right.
But the same thing,
born a bulldog.
What you see from me, I think it stems from the way I went about sport. Because even though Maul, you will say I'm good, I was good. I thought I was decent, but I didn't really see myself in the same light. And a lot of that came from, the coaches that I've had, the coaches in college that even if you did great, you were great for that moment. And then when you made one mistake, excuse my language, but you wasn't shit. I mean, that's just pretty much what they told you, So it was it was always one of those things. So now relating that to life, I walk around and I deal with stuff all day, but I just deal with it like what Tanya said with grace, man. I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
All right, we cool. I'll figure it out. I know we can figure it out. And even when I share conversations with Maul, I call Maul, I try to talk to him once, but he's stressed. His real job is tough. It's a tough job. Maul, I'll edit it if you want me to. It's a tough gig.
Nah, that's fine. Right? I don't have a problem with that.
But I always tell him, listen, think about all the other things. Take a chance, take a break, and it's all right, man. You're gonna get it. You're gonna get better. It's gonna get better. At the end of the day, we're human and we're gonna learn. We're gonna figure it out. Yeah. And if we're in this position for a reason. That's another thing I like to tell my athletes. You're here for a reason. If you weren't supposed to be here, you wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So I just, like I said, I was super excited to get you on this show. I'm very, very happy for everything that you've shared. As I tell all our guests, is I always wanted to write a book, but I don't like writing. See the problem?
I learned that from class.
Right? I hate
your presentations were amazing.
Yeah, I'll present all day, but if you want me to sit there with a pen, Marlo's my college roommate. He used to see my struggle when it came to paper.
Oh my gosh, it was
go through the roof.
Wait, the anxiety was I got a paper. I gotta write this paper. And it's and it was didn't you just write a paper last week? Yeah, this is another paper. I'm so why are you stressing? You made it through the last 5 papers. Why is this? I gotta write a paper.
Hate them. Don't like them. I don't like papers, but I will present oral presentation. Give it to me. I'll run with it. No problem. Right. But these things are time capsules. So I know you had said Instagram, people, listen, we're going to put it out there to the universe. It may not get picked up in 10, 20 years when people actually start to listen to it. But the stuff that we speak about on this podcast, I really feel that it connects and it will connect to anyone at any given moment. So I always want to say thank you to our guests for taking the time out to be a part of it.
Absolutely.
To share within your experiences that we just discussed. And I'm very hopeful and I see the promise in the work that you're doing. And I think that even if some people may not fully get it, right? People don't like what they don't understand, right? So just keep pushing out your work and they'll get it. They'll understand it. May not be tomorrow, may not be a week from now, may not be 10 years from now, but eventually it will. And these video casts that we put out there, they're time capsules. They're going to be around forever, right? So I'm thankful. I appreciate your time. This is, I don't know which episode we're on, Marlon. I don't want to even put it out. We're moving along in the right direction with great guests. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. This has been a blast.
So great to meet you. Thank you so much, Tanya.
Yeah.